where you are, come in, because it would be great to know where you're all from. That would be really interesting to know while everybody's getting here. I think we're going to hit the 100 point any minute now. My goodness. So, oh, wow, look at this. It's going so quickly. I can't keep up with that. I know we have more of you in from the US and Canada today because it's really the only session that the time zone works. So welcome. I've seen Sweden, my goodness. So I'm hoping everybody is here or on their way in. So I am going to cover off a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Because we are such a big group, I think it's a good idea to actually put this information out there right at the beginning for you. So housekeeping, I've got a list because otherwise I will definitely forget something. Certificates, first and foremost. In order to obtain your ICF certificate, you do have to be here for the whole call. And we do actually go through and check the timestamp to make sure that everybody has been. And the other piece is that, and this is an ICF rule, you do have to actively engage in the class. And what that means is when we get to the practice session and we go off into breakout rooms, you do actually have to be in the breakout room. And we had fun and games yesterday because I kid you not, probably a third of the people when we sent them off into breakout found themselves on their own in a room, which meant we had about 20 or 30 people who, for whatever reasons, they were masquerading as being on the call and they weren't actually on the call. And then what happened was everybody who found themselves on their own in the room, understandably, came back to tell us, and that made it really hard then to organise the session. So what we need to say is you need to be here for the whole call. You need to actively engage. That includes the breakout. If you, and ideally we would love screens on so that we know that you are actually here. If anybody has extenuating circumstances or a medical condition why you can't be, because I do appreciate that, if you could message Zeenat privately and give us the heads up on that. And other than that, hopefully everyone will make it into the breakout room. And when we get there, what we would ask is if you do find yourself by yourself, which is really sad, I know, please stay in the room and be patient, and we will shuffle everybody around because we can see who's on in a room on their own, and then we can team you up. But if everybody starts coming back, literally it was chaos yesterday, kind of organized chaos. So that's what we're going to say at this point, just to get that out. Okay, brilliant. So that's the certificates, breakout rooms, ICF regulations, so on and so forth. Yes, because I'm sticking with the ICF schedule and the content that they have had eyes on. That's another requirement. So that's what we are covering this evening. And we will have time, hopefully, because we've allowed a little bit of extra time on the session, an extra 30 minutes, because we are such a big group. And we will hopefully therefore have time at the end for some Q&A. And during the class, if you have questions, please pop them in the chat. Zena is going to capture them. And then at certain points through the class, I will ask Zena to bring those questions up for me. And if we have time, I will speak to you individually. Okay, so that's the plan. That's the plan for the evening. Workbooks, if you have got your workbook, that's great. I am going to be sharing my screen anyway. I will literally be working through the workbook. So if you haven't got access to it, it's not the end of the world. If you have got access, that's wonderful. I think Zena has got it, so she can pop it in the chat for you as well. So marvelous. So that's the workbook. If you have any friends who you think, or fellow coaches who you think would love to be here and they haven't made it tonight, then we have 2 more classes tomorrow at 12 UK and bright and early on Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. And so let them know. I think Zena will pop those links in the chat as well. Perfect. I think that's probably everything that I need to cover right at the beginning. Apart from one other thing, assuming everybody's going to be here for the whole class and engage and be in the breakout rooms, what we will need from you so we can send you your certificate is your full name. So if you could please pop in the chat now the name that you would like to appear on your certificates, because we can't work that out from some of the names that you've registered under and some of your emails. I think we have a Barbie bunny registered, so I'm not sure anybody would want that on their certificate, but maybe they would. But there you go. So we don't have a professional email, so, and it takes a lot of time to figure that stuff out. So if we can get that information up front. And on that point, we are going to have around 500 certificates to send out. So please bear with us. They will not be arriving with you tomorrow. You may need to wait for 4 to 6 weeks. Okay, so bear with us. If you have got an ICF renewal and you are banking on having these 2.5 points and you absolutely need to get them in on a certain date, then please let us know. Other than that, they will be with you. And the other piece on that, I think, if you are not already connected with me on LinkedIn as a first connection, if you can send me a connection request, and I think we've got the link in the chat for you, because again, that makes it much easier if we are first connections to send stuff out to you. Brilliant. Whoa, I think that's it. I think that's the housekeeping all done and dusted. Perfect. So I think at that point, we're already on record, but I think we should get going on our class this evening. Breathe. Okay, here we go.
I'm really sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, and I do apologise to everybody for interrupting. It's just that people are sending me messages because my name is also Zena, and I just want to make sure that people are sending
okay.
the right Zena. So I'm Zena Hall. So I don't mind people messaging me, but I'm the wrong person. So if you need to have the message,
yes, okay.
Zena Noorani.
Yeah, I'm here with the glasses, long hair, and the brown.
Yes, it's Zenat. Her full name is Zenat Noorani. So hopefully you will find a thank you, Zena, and no worries at all. Thank you for letting us know. Yes, you don't want to be getting all of those messages, do you? You just want to be here and be with us for the evening. Okay, so first and foremost, thank you. It's lovely to meet everybody. Thank you for registering. I know I've met a few of you already. If I haven't already met you, I will introduce myself officially, although you've probably all worked out who I am already. I am Pam Rigdon, and I am the founder of NLP for Coaches. And as you know, I run ICF accredited masterclasses. And here we are this evening going to cover one of those, and it is beliefs and limiting beliefs. And I think the tagline was how to help your clients shift their limiting beliefs, because that would be useful, wouldn't it? And we're going to be talking about why in a moment. First and foremost, would you pop in the chat for me what you are hoping to get out of this evening? Because clearly you've all seen the topic and thought, I'm going to put my name and email in that box and sign up for this. And here you are actually here. And it would be great to know what it is that you are hoping to get from the evening. Specifically, I've just seen that on a reminder of NLP. Yeah, we do actually have a lot of practitioners and master practitioners come to the classes because it is a refresher. And if you've been in the NLP world, you'll know that different trainers teach different content as well and have a different training style. So it's always worth working with different trainers, even on something that sounds like the same topic. So a refresher, new tools to use with my clients, absolutely. Goodness me, they're going very quickly. A deeper insight into the blocks that clients have, a deeper understanding. I would learn new ways. Beliefs come up a lot. Oh yes, don't they just? Okay, great. NLP is a huge topic, and we are looking really at a tiny piece of that this evening because we only have 2.5 hours. So, and the way that I teach NLP, my masterclasses, I like to think are probably some of the most useful bits, certainly for coaches. And the content has been adapted for coaches to use within a coaching conversation, actually. So, and that's why we have the ICF accreditation, because generally speaking, they don't accredit NLP because more often than not, the way it's taught, it's kind of a bunch of tools and techniques that don't necessarily fit well with coaching. So it's quite different in that respect. And we have this amazing topic, and the big why we are here is, and I am going to share my screen at this point because we're into the workbook content already. And let's go with that one and go there, and yay, here it is. There's our lovely beliefs lady. So the big why. When I teach using a model that includes why, what, how, and what if. The why is all about why are we here? Why did you sign up? Why is this so important that you're dedicating 2.5 hours of your time, committing 2.5 hours of your time to being here? The what is what are limiting beliefs anyway? What are beliefs? What are limiting beliefs? And the different types of limiting beliefs. And then, and I know you're all dying to get to the how we are actually going to help our clients shift those limiting beliefs and ideally create more supportive beliefs. That's the end goal, if you like, the outcome that we're moving towards. And then the what if is kind of like, what if I take what I've learned tonight with Pam and start using it with my clients tomorrow? What's possible then? The what if is, what if I was to take this and start designing workshops or programs that include it? The what if is the kind of creative piece that comes after the everything else. It's a kind of mind. I have a what if mind. Not everybody does. Some of us prefer the why, some of us prefer the how. So this is the structure we're going to be following. And first and foremost, the big why. Why is it important that you can identify your clients' limiting beliefs? And why is it important that you can actually work with them to resolve those limiting beliefs? And it kind of comes down to this, that more often than not, probably 99 times out of 100, or even more, 99.9, whenever a client is stuck in some way, or telling you that they're going to take action and then they don't take action, or they are procrastinating, or they are burying themselves in overwhelm, so they're not moving forwards. Whatever the issue is, as I say, 99 times out of 100, it is because underneath all of that there is a limiting belief or several limiting beliefs. And what I've noticed is that as coaches, we all talk a lot about beliefs and limiting beliefs, and yet actually coach training is woefully inadequate when it comes to actually working with them. And so that's why I'm guessing in the chat you're all saying more tools, because you may not have been given that much to work with beliefs already from a basic 60-hour coach training. You will be familiar with what they are, but not necessarily know what to do with them. So that's why it's really important, because unless you can work with your clients' beliefs, your clients are less likely, shall we say, to actually achieve what it is they have come to coaching for. Or if they do, it's going to be a harder journey for them. It's going to take longer. So that is why this is so, so important. Okay. It's in there in big letters. It is more effective. Okay. And the very first thing in NLP, the first thing you're going to need to do is this, is listen. Because the clues that we're going to be talking about this evening are all in your client's language. And the first L in NLP is listen. The second L is language. And the P, I prefer to think of the P as patterns, because there are patterns in your client's language that we are listening out for, that are going on in their heads. Okay, they're telling us what's going on in their heads. The neuro, that's the N, with what comes out. But all of that is just going to go right over unless you're listening. So that's the very first thing, and that fits beautifully with the ICF core competency of active listening. I think that's what it's called in ICF speak. I don't know the number of that one off the top of my head. So yes, basic coach training, woefully inadequate, in my opinion. Some lovely pages there for notes, but let's talk about the what, shall we? The what are beliefs and limiting beliefs. Okay. We don't need to get too stuck in this, because it's actually quite simple. The what they are is relatively simple. Identifying them can be more challenging. What they are, quite simply, are thought processes, and thought processes that repeat, hence the word pattern. And they are, a belief is what we, I, you, your clients, hold to be true. That said, they are not necessarily true. So they are our truth, and it may or may not be true. And the other key piece is that our beliefs can support us, or they can hinder us. And those ones are the ones that in NLP we call limiting beliefs. And I know in some modalities they're called self-limiting beliefs, or it's the same thing. Okay. Now, what else do we need to know about them? And this is important, is that beliefs, what we call, vary across the range of consciousness, and they vary from completely unconscious to conscious. meaning that we hold some beliefs that we are completely unaware of, that have been formed at a really early age. And then others have been formed later in life, and we are, of course, aware of those. Now, beliefs are stored in something that we call the memory storage system, but they're stored in there. They're all in there somewhere, okay? And there are individual beliefs. We have clusters of beliefs. They can be related to particular values. They can form what we call a belief system. They're all in there, okay? Really important to realize that we can have beliefs that we don't actually know are there. And what those beliefs that we hold do is they determine how we see the world. And because we believe our beliefs are true, as we go out into the world, we are looking for evidence to confirm our beliefs, which means that often we actually miss a lot of other information. And we call that deletion. And that can be helpful because there's a lot of information out there and we don't need all of it. And it can be incredibly unhelpful as well, because if what's driving the show, if you like, is a limiting belief, what we are missing out on is a world of possibility, because we just don't see it because it's not relevant to us. Okay? So our beliefs really determine the way that we see the world. And they either support us or hinder us. That's what we need to kind of hold on to here. One or the other. Now then, we have a model in NLP called the neurological levels. It was created by Robert Dilts, who we will meet again later in the masterclass. Very probably has done more in the kind of piece around beliefs within NLP than anybody else. And basically, it's kind of not neuro and it's not logical, but we call it neurological levels because that's what Robert called it. Okay, so don't try and figure it out. That is just literally what the model is called. And it has these particular levels. And it's a really great place to start, because what we want to do is begin to identify at which level beliefs are sitting at. And the reason we want to know at what level they are is because that will determine how we actually approach them when it comes to helping our clients shift those beliefs. So if we look here for a moment at these particular levels, we have got the level of capability. And that is around skills, really. It's around the I can or I can't. We can also refer to it as possibility. What's possible for us? That sits at this level. And we know that the belief is held at this level because we hear statements like, I can't lose weight. And it's the can't that gives it away as being at that level. So be listening out for any statements that include the can't, okay? Because that is what your client believes. They're saying, I can't apply for that promotion. I can't. And that is a pattern, okay? Then we go up a level in the model to identity. And those beliefs sound like, remember, we're listening. I am, this one makes me sad, just a fat person. I'll never change. We've got the I am statement that tells us that that belief is held at the identity level. Okay. And there's another word in there that is always a giveaway, and it's the never word, because those generalizations that we make, never, always, nobody, nothing, when we generalize in that way, those words are a big clue, a red flag, if you like, that lets you know as coach, limiting beliefs. Okay. And then we have beliefs that are held at beyond identity, which is a level beyond who we are, who we simply are. It's sometimes referred to as the global level, okay? And this particular limiting belief is one that a student on my first ever master practitioner course had been carrying around with her for over 40 years. And it was this: the world is a cruel place and people are spiteful. Well, you don't get much bigger than that, because world, yeah, the whole world, that is a huge generalization. And so is the word people. So that's people, all the people in the world. The world is a cruel place and people are spiteful. And looping back to the piece I was talking about earlier, where we go out into the world looking for evidence that confirms our belief and actually don't see all of the other stuff because we have almost blinkered. And this particular student had absolutely, particularly in the workplace, this was how her world was and how she experienced it and how she then went on to create it. It was a cruel place and the people in it were spiteful, to the extent that, and this is another word, so we've had generalized, we've mentioned deletion, deleting all the other stuff out there. We've mentioned generalizations, world, people. And here's another word that beliefs are, and that is distortions. Because when you can't find the evidence that your belief is true, you will actually distort what's out there to make it fit with your belief. And she was really good at doing that. And when we were talking, there were many scenarios that she relayed that perhaps you and I would think, really? That's interesting that you wouldn't necessarily think. I wouldn't necessarily think that the people in that scenario were being spiteful. And through her lens, they were. So there is this element where we begin to distort to actually fit with our version of reality, which is very much driven by the beliefs that we hold. Okay. So on that note, what I would love for you to do is to think about, because that particular student was certainly one of the most challenging clients, if you like, who I had met up to that point, and actually possibly since. So what would be really helpful is if you think for a moment about your most challenging client and write in the chat for me the belief, the limiting beliefs that they are coming out with and telling you, and they may not have registered as limiting beliefs before necessarily, but now we have the I can't, I am, and the big global world structure. So have a think now what you are coming up against in your work, what you are dealing with on a daily basis. I'm going to stop the share for a moment so that I can see the chat happening. Okay. I need to open this up because they are just going past so quickly. All right, let's have a look. I'm going back. Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go. They're not good enough. Okay, the enough word is a comparison. Whenever we hear comparisons, again, that is a clue. I will never get rid of my anxiety. There's that word, the never word. Okay. All women are manipulating. Okay. The word in there, all women. That's a generalization. Okay. I can't stick to anything. Okay, we've got two in there. We've got the can't and anything. Anything is a generalization. Can't, we've got the can't word. Okay. Oh gosh, post breast cancer, she believes she is a different person to who she was before and can't be that person. Yeah, so there's the can't in there. That's complicated, isn't it? And challenging. Please do message me and reach out if you are really challenged with some of your clients. Okay. I am not worthy. Yeah, there's the identity level, not good enough, not worthy. We've got negations. We're going to look, we come on to a checklist. We've got this amazing checklist for you with all of these on. The negatives, the I can't progress, a bad mum. Okay. I have someone just like your student. Yes, yes, it is challenging. Oh, and that word just, that one's always kind of like, okay, there might be a clue. Not lovable. There's the negation. Whenever there's a not in a sentence, it's again a clue that there may be limiting beliefs. Everyone is against me. There is the generalization. I can't focus. Not intelligent enough. The enough word in there again. Come to coaching to go alcohol free, but they enjoy drinking. Okay, so that's the challenging situation. Nobody cares about me. There's the generalization. Nobody. I have high standards and I'm controlling. Okay, that's a identity level, high standards. That suggests comparison, high standards compared to what or whom. So there's a clue. I had one, you can't do what you love and make money be successful. Oh, are you a business coach, Zoe? I think that one's more common than we think. And not helpful, not at all helpful. You can do what you love and make money and be successful. Okay, I am a bad person. There's an identity one. Are you beginning to see the patterns here? Because we have 100 of you plus on this call. None of these people have ever met, and yet they are saying remarkably similar things. Isn't that intriguing? It's not fair. There's the negative. I need to change them. I am terrible at communicating with people. There's the identity belief. I'm never, there's a never in there again. I'm not deserving, a negative. We've got 2 identity level beliefs there. My goodness, okay. It's all their fault. They trigger me. Okay, we could go off down a rabbit hole on that one. Don't get me started on that. And yes, absolutely. My colleagues are sabotaging me. Okay. Okay, that could be an element of distortion going on in there. Not good enough, negative, and the enough word. So comparison, compared to what? Not good enough compared to what or whom. My goodness, I think we need to come up for air at this point. I am a bad girl, not doing enough. The market is terrible. I won't find a job. Okay. However hard I work, I will always fail. I can't do this or that. I can't lose weight. I can't afford it. There's a lot of can'ts going on. Believe they're not a good person. I can't find the time to set up my business. Oh my goodness. Okay. Not good enough. Not good enough. Always been this way. There's another one, that always, never words. Patterns of language, and patterns of language that are common between humans, it seems, across continents, because some of your humans who you are working with, some of you are in the States and Canada and Sweden, and we're seeing those same patterns. I am a loser. I will never get the promotion. I don't deserve better. I can't trust the medical profession. Okay, people will judge me. People like me are not important. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's shake it off. Too many limiting beliefs at this point. Goodness me. I would love to know how you're all working. Yeah, some real shaking going off there. Absolutely. We do that in NLP. We get up and kind of literally jump up and down and shake it off. It's a very kind of kinesthetic thing to do. Okay, let's go back and have a look. Thank you for that. I think it's really fascinating, isn't it, when you see it in that way? It's like, well, hang on a minute. It's almost like there's a language that is exclusive to limiting beliefs, its own very own language. So let's go back and have a look. Screen control going here. So the neurological levels, really helpful so that we know which level the beliefs are on, because that is to an extent going to inform how we move forwards. Okay. And there's a really key point here as well, which I know we mentioned yesterday, that distinction between capability, that level, and identity. As a rule, it is much easier to help a client when the limiting belief is held exclusively at the capability level. So the I can't, rather than the identity level. I think a good way of explaining this, back in the day when I was training fitness professionals, a lot of my students at that point were working in smoking cessation, so helping clients give up smoking. A lot of them work with the NHS. And what they reported back time and time again was, if a client came in and said, I smoke 60 cigarettes a day, as compared to another client who walked in and said, I am a smoker, even if the client who said, I am a smoker, was only perhaps smoking 5 or 10 cigarettes a day, they always found that the client who was telling them about their behavior, I smoke 60 cigarettes a day and I can't give up. They always found it much easier to help that client, and those clients found it easier to give up smoking than another client for whom smoking had become part of their identity. Because as soon as you get to that, I am a smoker, smoking is part of who they are. And it is much harder to give up part of who we are than it is to change our behavior. Okay, so that's another reason why it's important that you can make this distinction when you are listening for these beliefs and clients' behavior. Are you dealing with behavior, or are you dealing with somebody's identity? Okay, really important to recognize that. Oh my goodness, yes, there we are. There it is again. The world is a cruel place and people are spiteful. Yes, goodness me, makes me very, very sad when I think about that. That is beyond identity, beyond. And then you're probably all familiar, and I think it was Henry Ford. I know it's been attributed to several different people. The if you think you can do a thing, or if you think you can't do a thing, you're probably right. Okay. And that, I think, when I first heard that, really kind of like, because our beliefs are what we hold to be true. And if you think you can't do it, you're right, you can't. And there's no way forward from there unless you can change that perspective. And the good news is that through NLP, we absolutely can assist our clients to change that perspective. And I'm sure some of you at least will be aware that within NLP, we have some huge, big, and they're generally called techniques. I prefer the word processes. And so often students who come to this session think, oh, I'm going to need one of those to actually help my clients with limiting beliefs. No, you don't actually. You simply need to understand these structures, recognize them, and then what we're covering in the how, what we're giving you are some conversational templates which take the essence of those big rah, 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 lots of loud music techniques, so that you can use that essence within a coaching conversation. Okay, so you don't, and actually some of the most effective work that I have done has been in that way, rather than a whole complete huge thing process. Absolutely. When you can get this nailed, it will absolutely transform your coaching, and you don't need the big techniques. Just wanted to clarify that for you. Oh yes, so there we are. The whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you are right. Okay, so your job, first and foremost, is to listen. I'm going to bang on about that lots and lots and lots. And listen so that you can hear your client's beliefs that have been formed in the past, and then think about how these beliefs are limiting them in the present. Okay, so there's these two elements. The belief has been formed. How is it actually showing up and affecting them now? What's happening as a result of it? So your client will be able to, you will hear the beliefs that are consciously held. You may begin to hear beliefs that are coming up, that are coming from the unconscious. There are, again, NLP techniques that you can actually use to access the unconscious beliefs with permission, of course. However, that is not something that it is safe to do online. And I'm sure as coaches, you may be able to imagine why that is. Essentially, if you begin to use a process which accesses somebody's deep unconscious, what could happen is, and what does happen, is sometimes they can remember something that previously they had completely forgotten and they had no knowledge of. And as I'm sure you're aware, often we suppress traumatic events. And so what can happen is your client can remember a traumatic event which they were previously unaware of. And if they're the type of person who, when they remember things, they remember them in the way that it's as though they are back there experiencing whatever it is all over again, and whether it's a happy memory or a traumatic memory, we some of us just do it that way. It's like we're back there in our bodies seeing what's happening. Now, if that happens and the client drops into a traumatic memory, you do not want to be on the other side of the world in a Zoom room, because as you can imagine, that is distressing for the client. They may associate into that memory so fully that, at least in that moment, they are, for all intents and purposes, being a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old. So all of a sudden, you're not on a call with your adult client, you're on the call with a very young person. You don't want to have to deal with that online. So we do not use any of the processes that mean that is more likely to happen. And that, in any case, is not coaching. That is a therapeutic application of NLP, in my opinion, and only ever to be used in a face-to-face situation, such that if that does happen, you are there fully to fulfill your legal duty of care to your client, because that is your responsibility as a coach. Okay, so I absolutely cover that in these sessions because I think it's important to realize. So there is a whole bunch of stuff, as effective as it is, that we do not cover on my programs that are online programs. So yes, you do not want that to happen. It could happen. It could just happen because that is where your client happens to be. And there are ways that you can deal with that, but we don't do anything that means that it is more likely to happen. Okay, so certain processes are a huge, huge, huge big no-no, in my opinion. Okay, so we've talked about the what. I think when we get to this bit now, we've probably covered it all already. Generalizations we've mentioned. They are rules. They are rules. We make rules because that makes it easier for us to process all of the information out there. But sometimes those rules are too absolute and too stuck. And intangible and we can't change them. And that's when we start saying things like nobody and always and never. And the problem is, and I love the way that I've written this, actually, generalization is how we take a single unhappy event and turn it into a lifetime of unhappiness. Now, the student who shared with us on that training that what she believed was the world is an unhappy place, a cruel place, and that people are spiteful. What actually happened, and she remembered the event that this belief was created as a result of, what actually happened, a significant emotional event for her. It may not sound significant to you. We are respectful of our client's perspective. The event that happened was some children took her sweets off her. First year at school, just started primary school, so aged 5, and they threw her sweets on the floor. And as a result of that, she created the belief the world is a cruel place and people are spiteful. Well, actually, the playground on that day, particular day, was a cruel place. And those particular children were being pretty spiteful. But we make a rule. And it became the world, and it became all people. And that's why she'd had such a hard time in the workplace and actually holding down a job, because the workplace became the playground and her colleagues were these children. They were the people. And that was how she went out into the world every day. That is a hard limiting belief to try on for size, which is what I encourage you to do with your most challenging client, and all of those beliefs that came out in the chat, is to actually step into their model of the world, what we call their model of the world. Sometimes we call that second position. We, in our own bodies, looking out for our eyes, are in first position. And when we build rapport with a client or create trust with them in ICF speak, what we're actually doing is stepping into their model of the world and looking out through their eyes and seeing things from their perspective. And when you do that and your client has a huge limiting belief like that, believe you me, you understand what their life has been like for them. And that's important because it's that level of understanding that comes with that level of rapport building that actually facilitates their change. Because what your clients want, first and foremost, is to be seen, to be heard, for them to feel that you feel what they feel, and to be understood. And that is what comes through that process of you stepping into their world and being there with them. Okay. And I do that. Sometimes I even think about trying on a sweater, that the belief sweater of the world is a cruel place and people are spiteful. And that's not a nice sweater to put on. But it's important that you do, so that you understand your clients. But yes, a single unhappy event and turn it into a lifetime of unhappiness. And our clients don't actually understand that that's what they've done and that's what they're doing. And sometimes simply bringing their awareness to that can be enough to begin to change. Limiting decisions, they are the biggest limiting belief that comes first before of all the others. I'll take some questions at the end of this session, okay, of the what of this section. So, okay. Yeah, limiting decisions come before a limiting belief. So that actual, the world is a cruel place, people are spiteful, that was, she decided that that was the case. And then many more limiting beliefs came after that, kind of hooked onto it. Okay, so yes, can you imagine the kind of issues this created? Not good. So I'm going to stop the share for a moment and come to Zena and see, before we go on to that and a little bit more lighthearted, I'm going to come to Zena and see if we have any questions that I can answer for you. Zena, have you got
No, I haven't been able to spot any
okay,
so far. I'm sure there's going to be lots, but yeah.
okay. Angie, you've got your hand up. You can, where's she gone? She disappeared. Oh,
I'm
there
here.
you are. You can talk to me. Go for it.
It's Angeli.
Oh, Angie.
Angeli, yes, thank you. I wanted to ask you a question actually going back. You mentioned this prime concern elicitation. Can you mention that a little bit more? What is that?
Well, I simply named it because it's a technique that we use to find the biggest limiting belief that a person has that is driving all of the others. And it is almost always invariably unconsciously held. So it is a process that accesses somebody's unconscious thinking. And this is what I was saying, that we don't do that online. So I don't teach this process online because it's not safe to. It's not safe because it's not safe for us to use it online as a coach with our clients. So I don't go beyond saying that this exists, but it's not what we're able to do today. And it's actually a way advanced master practitioner process because you're working with the unconscious and you have no idea what is sitting in your client's unconscious mind, and sometimes neither do they. So does that make any sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, it's the name of a very specific prime concern is what it says it is really on the tin. It is the client's prime concern, but they don't know what it is. All right.
There's a question.
Yes.
Would that be imposter syndrome?
Okay. I'm going to be talking about imposter syndrome in a wee while. No. The prime concern is imposter syndrome is a kind of conglomerate, a collection of several limiting beliefs, specific limiting beliefs. The prime concern is always a specific limiting belief that has one of these patterns built into it. And so, for example, that student's prime concern was the world is a cruel place, people are spiteful. That was her prime concern. That was the biggest limiting belief that was driving everything else. So imposter syndrome is a kind of umbrella term for the 6, 7, 8, I believe, in the original piece of research, specific limiting beliefs that imposter syndrome refers to. And I'm not going to, spoiler alert, I'm not going to go into the imposter syndrome bit just yet, but we are coming to it, okay? All right, brilliant.
Just one more, Pam.
Oh,
That's
okay.
okay. Ivana, sorry, is asking, could your client saying the world is a cruel, as well as being generalization, also be seen as distortion? So with the client saying the world is a cruel place.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because because it's the generalization, it's a distortion as well. And yes, taking that single event of what happened with the sweets being thrown on the floor, and then that's the belief that's been created. And she was continuing to distort because she was looking for evidence all the time that this belief was true. And when she couldn't find it, she was actually seeing people being spiteful in situations where, from my perspective, they really weren't. And that begins to be a concern then, and that begins to cross over into kind of mental health issues area potentially, which of course is not our scope of practice. Makes sense. Okay, I've got a couple of questions. We've got Mithili.
Hi,
Hi.
Pam. Hi, everyone. My name is Maithili. Very often in coaching conversation, all the examples we have spoken about today are very direct and clear. But most often, clients are not clear and direct. They'll say things like, I'm not comfortable with this, or, things like that. So how do we listen to those kind of statements? And someone here had also mentioned one saying, I'm not ready for that. Is that a limiting belief? Or how do we read into this?
Okay, with the first one that you mentioned, I'm not comfortable with that. Obviously, I don't know what it is they're not comfortable with, so you may well know, but I don't. So my first question would be they're deleting something in that statement. So it would be, what exactly are you not comfortable with? The fact that there's a negative in there is a clue for limiting beliefs. So that would be my first question. What exactly is it that you're not comfortable with? Okay. And with that in itself is a belief and a limiting belief, because that is their perspective on something. That's their view, that they are not comfortable with it. So that in itself is a limiting belief.
But can we say that when they make statements like that, it's at least there is sort of like a sliver of hope to say they may be willing to work towards how can I make it comfortable for me?
Yes, there's always hope. Always hope. Another approach you could use when someone is more vague like that
Yeah.
is to what we call chunk up rather than chunking down. So the question would be, what does not being comfortable do for you?
Yeah.
Because they, through holding on to that belief that they are not comfortable, that is doing something for them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be holding on to it. So it's that really giving them back their words exactly. What does not being comfortable, what is that doing for you? And you could throw in for what purpose to not be comfortable. And that's chunking up, and that will, without a doubt, get you more information around that. Okay.
Thank you.
A positive intention. And I think we've got one more question. I'm going to come to Joan. Hello, Joan.
Yes, my sister she always says, almost always, the city that she lives in, that no one is friendly. What I've noticed though, is that she goes into a store and she is not friendly. She's not friendly to any of her neighbors. They all say hi, she doesn't respond. It just drives me crazy.
Well, there you've got it. You've got the no one, the generalization, and we behave in a way. What matters more than anything to us when we have this belief, what matters to us is that it really is true. We will almost do anything to prove ourselves right. And so the unfriendly behavior, which you can see, is she's making sure that nobody is friendly. And she won't see that actually it's her behavior that's making sure of that.
Right.
But we're so determined to prove ourselves right that we go to almost any lengths to make sure that we are right. You know, this is hard to actually get someone to give up on one of these things, particularly those big ones with the no ones, the nobodies, the everythings, the always, the never. You know, they're so intransigent.
Thank you.
And the challenge is to the no one in my city is friendly would be really what, not one single person, and I don't know what the population of that city is, but I would give it back to her. So really, not one of those 200,000 people in all the time that you've lived there has ever actually been friendly to you. That's extraordinary. Not once, not ever. And I would just really, you have to know someone. You have to really be in rapport to do that, because it can come across as being, frankly, quite smug and sarcastic if you don't get it right. But it is absolutely to challenge that intransigent no one. And it works. It really works. And hopefully what she might say is, well, actually, there was that day, however many years ago, when the postman said hello. And then you're like, well, there you go. You see, you were wrong. You were absolutely wrong. There was one person once that was actually friendly. And that's what you're doing. You're just trying to kind of almost doesn't sound particularly friendly, but you're just trying to actually blow that belief up. You're just trying to actually boom, explode it so it's not there anymore. And that's one way of doing it. Okay.
Thank you.
It's lovely to see you. Brilliant. Okay, so let's move on, shall we? Quick stretch, everybody. I'm going to have a quick stretch. Okay, yeah. We are moving on to something a little bit more light-hearted at this point, because hard work grappling with all of those limiting beliefs. Oh, what am I doing? I'm going backwards and forwards. There we go. Share. That one. Da-da. Okay. Here we go. Somebody said this to me once. You can't coach wearing pajamas. Well, I guess that may be true, actually, if you are working out in the world and in an organization, that may not work. But actually, if you're working from home, and perhaps like me, some days getting up can be challenging because I have a chronic illness and good old healthy dose of chronic fatigue that goes with it. And I absolutely confess to some days I will coach in my pajamas. I have very nice pajamas, I have to say, but I have coached in my pajamas. So anyway, I was told this years ago that you can't coach wearing pajamas. You have to wear a suit. Okay. Anyway, I prove that particular person wrong. But we are going to have a look at some of these, because what that is, you see, that's a belief, and the can't is in there. And the person who said that absolutely believed that to be true. Okay, absolutely believed it. And that's the point. Our beliefs are what we hold to be true. They are our absolute sacred truth. And as with Joe and sister, we will go to many lengths to just, we're not giving up on that easily. Okay. So let's have a look, because what I've got here are some more beliefs about coaching, all of which I have heard in the past. Oh gosh, need to update that. It's 23 years now since I signed up for my first NLP practitioner course. 23 years. Goodness, 2001. And every single person who made these statements believed that they were true. Okay. Hopefully, you might have a few interesting moments here. Global beliefs, these are the big ones. Okay, so here we go. The International Coaching Federation is the best coaching organization. The EMCC Global is the best coaching organization. The Association for Coaching is the best coaching organization. Wow. The people, the individuals who made those statements believed that they were right and that what they were saying was true. But they can't all be the best, can they? So we might have an opinion about it, and our opinions, beliefs, aren't necessarily true, but they're true for us. They're absolutely true for us. And here's some other contrary ones. I've heard these too. The benefits of coaching are transformational and life-changing. Well, I would hope with 100 coaches on the call that you all believe that one and buy into it. And not this one. Coaching doesn't work. You've got this one, we've got this one. They can't both be true. But the person, the people who said them at the time absolutely believed that what they were saying was the truth, because it was their truth. Coaching is better than therapy. Not surprisingly, it was a coach who said that. Therapy is better than coaching. Well, surprise, surprise, that was the therapist. And they both believed that they were right. Which one? Which one is really true? We don't know. It's an interesting discussion. Does it matter? The point is that the person saying it believed it to be true, is their sacred truth. Let's have a look at these ones. I am too old to be a coach. I am not old enough to be a coach. I don't have enough experience to be a coach. I can't coach clients who are older than me. I can't coach clients who are younger than me. I can coach anybody. I can't charge clients until I have finished my training. Some of those. Now look at this one for a moment. As we've not met this pattern yet, and it is a pattern. So this piece is true. I am struggling to find clients. Equals, I am not good enough at coaching. Now that is a distortion. It's also called a complex equivalence, which is why the equals sign is in there. Because what has happened here, someone has this situation, in this case, they're not finding any clients. And they've made it mean something. They've had to find an explanation for that. They've made it mean something. And what they've made it mean is, I am not good enough at coaching. Now, that could be true. That could be the case. And most of the coaches I've worked with who have believed this, I am struggling to find clients equals I am not good enough, that absolutely was not the case. They were brilliant coaches. What they weren't was any good at marketing. That was the issue. But what they've done is attach something to the I am struggling to find clients that doesn't belong there. And then those two things are equal, but they're not equal. And so as coaches, we have to challenge the equal sign, because we need those two things to be separated again. Okay? Because that isn't helpful when that happens. And that is a distortion. And how we respond to those is to ask, because we know that the equal sign equals means, is to ask, what else could that mean? So the I am struggling to find clients equals I'm not good enough. What else could that mean? Because what that does then is just unpack that a little bit, and it challenges the equals. What else could that mean? What else? And it could mean lots of things. It doesn't have to mean I am not good enough at coaching. That's not true. Okay? A complex equivalence. If I get more qualifications, I will find clients. Okay, well, a lot of my colleagues in training would actually like people to believe that, because that means coaches go on and on and on signing up for trainings. And I am a huge advocate, of course, of CPD and of coaches doing more training, but not for that reason necessarily, because it isn't as simple as that. It is not as simple as that. Simply getting more qualifications does not necessarily mean you will find more clients, unless perhaps you work on your marketing skills as well. Okay, but it's this equal sign when we make things equal. Complex equivalence. Now we're on the capability level. This is all about skills. And there's some real corkers here. You have to be qualified to be a coach. You don't have to be qualified to be a coach. You need to have experience. You don't have to have experience. Qualifications are more important. It's more important to have experience than qualifications. You can see where this is going, can't you? Now, ouch, this one. This was unfortunate. An ICF credentialed coach actually said this in a group setting that I was facilitating with probably about 12 other coaches, none of whom were ICF credentialed. So you can imagine how well that went down, can't you, on the day? ICF credentialed coaches are better than and more skilled than all other coaches. Whoa, okay. She believed it. She absolutely believed it. Okay. Who knows if that's true? It may be true in certain situations, but anyway, the point is, it's the person's sacred truth. Okay. They believe it. That's what matters to them. Capability level. Whoa, you have to be ICF credentialed, otherwise you're not a real coach. I think that was the same person actually who said that. You have to have a postgraduate qualification. Now, this one was really shocking. Action coach business coaches, should be the typo there, are not real coaches. They come in for some comment. Coaches can use NLP within their coaching practice to be more effective. Well, I believe that one, absolutely, 100%. That's part of my belief system for sure. Coaches absolutely can use NLP within their coaching practice to be more effective. This one, however, surprisingly, NLP does not belong in the coaching space. You know what? In some respects, I'm inclined to agree with that, which always surprises people. But let me explain that a little bit, and I've already alluded to it really. NLP is a huge, 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 huge topic. And it is technique driven, process driven, and almost in that sense, the opposite of how the ICF define coaching. NLP and coaching, as the ICF define coaching, are two very different things. And sometimes coaches find that out to their cost, and I mean literal cost, because they sign up for a practitioner course or a master practitioner course, and they go, and however many days that is these days, it used to be 16, no, 20 when I did it. Now it's about 6 or 7. And they go and learn all of these techniques, but then they don't know how to use them within their coaching because they are so very different. And that's a shame. That's a pity, because they're both fantastic modalities, but how do you bring them together? And it has literally taken me 20 years to work out how to do that. And that's why my classes are ICF accredited. And if you can imagine, I should have drawn a picture, sort of a Venn diagram where we've got 2 circles, and it's that overlap, that piece in the middle where the magic happens, where NLP and coaching come together and overlap, but it's only actually a very little piece in the middle there. Okay, does that make sense? So it always surprises people. I kind of go, yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree with you. So it's a very, very specific elements of NLP that can be used within a coaching conversation. I've seen the dog, I'm chuckling. Brilliant. So what else have we got? Oh, here we go. I'm sure you're getting the idea now. Barefoot Coaching is the best coach training school. Henley Business School is. Optimus, the Coach Academy. Marshall Goldsmith, the Coactive Training Institute. They cannot all be best. But the person who said it believed what they were saying. Okay? Beliefs about the business of coaching. There was one of these actually in the chat earlier, almost. I'm going to go back and have a look for that. Nobody will pay for coaching. There's a nobody word in there, the generalization. No one knows what coaching is. I can't be successful because there are too many coaches. Okay, the market is saturated. Well, there's an interesting topic for debate. I have some views on that. I'll let you draw your own conclusions. I looked at some numbers the other day, actually, a few weeks ago. In the UK, there are, according to LinkedIn, there are 303,000 coaches. And if you do the sums for the population of the UK, let's say adults over 25, there are 45 million thereabouts. That actually works out as there being one coach for every 130 people. So come to your own conclusions on that one, because that for me was quite like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. So Draw your own conclusions about whether or not the market is saturated. Okay. Successful coaches have a niche. Well, we could debate that one, couldn't we? For ages, you don't have to have a niche. Coaching is worth £50 an hour. Coaching is worth £500 an hour. Charging £500 an hour for coaching is immoral. Again, the person who is saying those beliefs, those things, statements, absolutely believe them, which makes them beliefs. Okay. All right. Oh gosh, coaching. There's some more. Hang on. Coaches shouldn't ever give advice. You can't be a coach and mentor. You can't coach on the phone or Zoom. Coaching on the phone or Zoom is more effective. Coaching sessions have to be an hour long. You only need 10 minutes to coach somebody. And executive coaches should wear suits like their clients. Remember that one? Which comes back to, and you absolutely can coach while wearing pajamas. I promise you, I have proved it. Okay. All right. So I hope what you have taken away from that is this sense that for the person making the statement absolutely believes that it is true. So that makes it a belief. And it's their sacred belief. This is what they believe. People will really dig in to defend their beliefs, as we've talked about already. And it's important that you hold on to that, because we are coming on to this section, which I call stories and lies. Now, let me explain this. I became very concerned a few years ago because I was seeing many social media posts where coaches and names of coaching programs and all sorts, where coaches, and this may be you, and this is not intended in any way to be critical, it is my perspective and how my view on this, knowing what I know about beliefs. Okay. Kind of, here's the thing, and I've said it time and time again. For your client, their belief is absolutely sacred. And right now in the present, it's what they believe. Okay? For them, it is true. So if you say to your client this belief, or, you know, maybe I'm not good enough, or I can't do this, that's just a story that you're telling yourself. Calling it a story, which kind of suggests it's fiction. And I've seen some coaches actually say, you're lying to yourself. You see, we know as the coach, we know that this belief of I am not good enough isn't true. We know that. And so this is always well intended. But the point is, the real point here is that your client doesn't know that. For them, it's true. And I'm fairly sure that if someone were to accuse you of perhaps making something up as a story or lying even, that would be very uncomfortable for you. And it would make you feel defensive. It might even make you feel angry. It would certainly make you dig in. And none of that sounds very helpful in a coaching relationship. Because what you really need to do, and we talked about this earlier, trying the jumper on for size, and where we, in order to create rapport or trust, what we need to do is to actually step into our client model of the world and be there with them so that they feel seen and heard and felt and understood, because that in itself can facilitate change. But then from that place, you can begin to challenge this limiting belief of I am not good enough or I can't apply for this job. From that place, you can begin. But the absolute first thing that you need to do is to honor their truth and be respectful of their truth. And their truth right now is, I am not good enough. And simply saying to them as a belief change technique, that's just a story you're telling yourself. That is not building rapport. Telling them that it's a lie. But it isn't, it's their truth. And you have to meet your clients where they are to start with, before we can lead them or travel on their journey with them out of that place, out away from that belief. Okay, but you won't ever do it through, or in my view, my belief is that saying to them, this is just a story, you're kind of missing how important this is to them. And that's not building rapport. And I would question how successful that could be for that reason. Okay, that's my view, my belief around stories and lies. That's the post. I have literally just copied the LinkedIn post. Yeah, someone believes I don't matter, I'm not important. You have to go and sit in that place with them of I don't matter and I'm not important, and honor that. Simply saying to them, that's just a lie, you're lying to yourself, that's not going to work. Anyway, that's my view. Okay. Oh, I think we definitely need a stretch before this one. I told you that we'd get there, didn't I? Debunking imposter syndrome. Oh my. Okay. I have an opinion on this, which I will share because I believe it will shed some light on this topic of beliefs and limiting beliefs. Where to start with this? Okay, we have talked about the L in NLP, listening and language, and we've talked about the P, patterns. And you've probably realized now that there are some very clear patterns that are using these words like can't and never, and they're very distinct and precise. There's a science to this. NLP is called art and science for a reason. Now, here's the thing. I have met and worked with many coaches, and it's all over at the minute, who tell me that they have imposter syndrome. Now, okay, tell me about that. And this is such a subtle difference when, as adults, we are facing a new situation, so it could be a new job, it is absolutely normal to ask yourself the question, wait for it, am I good enough? That's human. We all wonder. We might even worry a bit about whether we are good enough. You could label that and call it, I don't know. What I call it is self-doubt. Doubting is questioning. And that is, as I say, absolutely normal in a new situation. But there is a huge, huge, huge chasm of difference between asking yourself the question, am I good enough? And actually believing I am not good enough. One is a question, which is normal, and the other is a huge limiting belief. And when you read the original research that brought all of this about around imposter syndrome, it is actually characterized by a cluster of limiting beliefs, and I am not good enough is one of them. And absolutely, we can, using the processes that I'm going to teach you, we can work very successfully with those specific limiting beliefs that characterize and make up imposter syndrome. So I'm not for 1 minute saying that this doesn't exist. It does. And it is incredibly disabling. And I don't use that word lightly for someone who is absolutely in that place where they don't believe they are good enough. And it's not in the DSM and classified as a mental health issue, but it could be, it probably should be, because it is that disabling. But here's the thing, most of, like 99.9% of the people who I talk to who tell me they have imposter syndrome, they really don't. What they are experiencing is actually self-doubt. They are asking themselves, am I good enough? Am I going to measure up? And there's a subtle difference. It's really, really subtle. And I think the other problem that I have with this is, and we've alluded to this already with the Robert Dilts model, is as soon as you identify with something, it becomes bigger and harder to work with. And one way of making sure that happens is to stick a label on it. And that's what happened. It's like, okay, so we've got this cluster of 6 limiting beliefs. Let's call it imposter syndrome and see if that helps. Well, no, it doesn't. It makes it a lot harder to actually work with, because now your person with the 6 limiting beliefs also has an identity of being an imposter, which is not helpful. So I have a few issues around this, as you can probably tell. And when somebody, as is often the case, self-diagnoses, let's use that word, imposter syndrome, I think we have to be very careful what we wish for, because as I say, it's a very fine line between doubting whether we are capable and believing that we're not. And I think if you go down that route, you might actually talk yourself into it. So there you go. Be careful what you wish for. And I think for those of you who kind of work around this area, I hope that's helpful, that it makes you step back for a moment and reflect and have a new awareness when you are actually sitting down with clients, and be mindful of that distinction. And is this self-doubt that has been labeled in this way? Or actually, is this someone who genuinely believes that they're not good enough and that they're never going to be good enough? And not only that, people are going to find out that they're not good enough and that they really shouldn't be there doing what they're doing because they're not good enough. And it's only a matter of time until somebody realizes. They're two very different things. Okay? And it's very easy to say to someone who's just started a new role, and maybe they're a first-time leader and they're having all sorts of challenges stepping up into that role. But that's normal. That's normal in a new role that you haven't done before. And when you say to that person, oh, that sounds like you're having imposter syndrome. No, not helpful. Okay, there's my thoughts on it. Okay, there you go, 99%. I think, again, I've just copied out literally the LinkedIn post, so you might want to read it and go there. Right, we are almost at the how. Zena, has there been any more questions?
Right. There's been more statements where they're agreeing with you
Oh, okay.
on that, but
Well,
there was one that said,
a
are
relief.
women more susceptible to imposter syndrome?
Yes, the research suggests so. The original research was with a group of women. Yes. So that's biased to start off with, because I don't know if anyone's actually done an equivalent piece of research with a group of men. So, but the original research was with a group of women, and it does seem to be there does seem to be a gender thing going on here, but you know, I don't think there's been enough research really to compare to be able to say one way or the other. I think there are cultural factors at play here, societal factors at play, all kinds of gender issues coming into this that mean that possibly, yes, women are more likely to end up in a place where they decide that they're not good enough. But I think it is also possible that a male could end up there too. So I don't think it's an exclusively female issue. Okay, I think that's really all I can say on that, because there really hasn't been enough research done. Okay, is there any more questions, Zena?
No, there's just some people saying, Karis was just saying, very interesting to think about. Thinking back now, I can see that there are only a limited number of times I've personally experienced imposter syndrome, whereas self-doubt comes up much more frequently. It's quite freeing to rethink that label.
Just one of you saying that makes it worthwhile that we've covered that, because it is something that I really feel strongly about. So it's you know, I think it's tricky, isn't it? Because it is an incredibly out there popular idea. Coaches use it in their marketing, and I just think it needs a bit more thought around it. Okay. It's a challenging one, that one, but one of you saying that makes it worthwhile that we've covered that then. Because yes, self-doubt is normal, absolutely normal. Not easy, not comfortable necessarily, but it's normal and we get through it. Okay. All righty.
There's
So
just one more, Pam.
yes, go for it. Mhm.
Where's it gone? How do you sit in the client's world? From Rachel.
That's a very good question. How do you sit in the client's world? Well, if you have time to look up Rachel on Google, good old Google, there is an NLP technique stroke process called, I believe it's the meta mirror, that will explain that. It's this idea that when we are being us, ourselves, inhabiting our own bodies, looking out through our own eyes, hearing what we hear, we call this first position. And then there is another person over there, and we call the place where they are second position. And they are in their body, looking out through their eyes, and so on and so forth. And our job as a coach is, as an NLP coach, is to leave our first position here. And one way that we practice this in NLP, I can't really show you because I'm going to disappear off screen. But one way that we do this is to actually, literally, physically get up and move into the position of our client. Now, this is something that you can do when you are with them. It is a process that you can do after a session to gather more information about who they are, where they are, and all of the things that matter to them. I often use the DILTS model, the triangle. We've covered a few of those levels. So I will consciously think about what's their environment like? Who are they with? Who are they living with? What are their behaviors? What are they doing? What are they not doing? What skills do they have? What's their experience? Knowing what I know about them already, do I think that they believe? And what is it that's important to them? And then, who are they? And what are their bigger beliefs, their global beliefs? And I kind of really go into that space where I'm fully thinking about my client, and then literally physically get up and walk over there into second position, into their position, leaving me here and go over there, so that I literally step into second position. And then you can look back at your first position from their second position, where you are now, and now you're being your client, in essence. Does that make sense? I'm not sure whose question I was answering. And another thing you can do, Rachel, another thing you can do is we have what we call third position. And the third position is a neutral observer. And you can also shake off first position, shake off second position, go and stand at a distance in third position and take a perspective on the relationship between the two. Okay. Or you could just look back at yourself and give yourself feedback. So we play with these positions and get very well practiced at stepping from one to the other. And that's how you do it. Okay. So you go sit in your client's model of the world. And before you can do that, you have to think of everything that you already know about them. And it's when you do that, that a lot of information comes in that I believe, is coming from that hasn't been said yet in a session. You are accessing what's going on in there, and can even access information that hasn't been said yet, and that can be incredibly valuable. And it's really hard to describe kind of how that feels. I guess an insight is a good word. And then you come back to first position with all of that information. Does that make sense, Rachel? Is she there? I'm going to stop my share for a minute so I can see. Does that help?
Not sure where she's disappeared to.
Maybe she's gone. I heard a few beeps and
Yeah.
That can help you. Really helpful.
good.
Yes,
Good. There you are. That's how we do it. But yes, look up Meta Mirror. You should probably be able to find some information on that one, because that will
Thank
explain
you.
in more detail. It's a tricky one to teach online, to be fair, but the concept, I can explain the concept, and then you could go and practice.
Yeah.
I used to do this at the end of the day many years ago when I was teaching live workshops. And if, for example, I had a student and there was something going on, but I didn't really know what was going on, and they weren't telling us what was going on, but it was quite obvious something was going on, I would wait until the end of the day and then literally park me and go and sit in the actual chair where they had been sitting all day. And that makes that process a lot easier if you can actually go physically sit where someone has been. And then you would kind of get more insight into actually what was happening.
Okay, thank you.
A little bit woo-woo. And I'm not woo-woo, to be honest, but I can absolutely say that there's some information that has come through when I have used that process, which has been quite astounding. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. And you can even feel what somebody's limiting beliefs are that they haven't yet verbalized. What you can't do is then say to them, oh, I know what your limiting belief is. It's this, and this, because that is what we would call an installation. And that's not helpful. You have to wait for it to come from your client. But having that insight in advance can be very useful. And I believe it can actually facilitate that process because it makes them feel very safe. Gives them that sense that someone truly understands, because you do when you've gone to those lengths to actually understand them.
Okay. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Okay. All right. So let's have a look at our how, shall we? When we get to this, you will find, oh my gosh, what is she doing? There we go. The how, and there it is. Observe, listen, and feel. And the stepping into our client's model of the world is the feel piece. Okay, go and feel. Here we have a very handy checklist. Can I make this? If I make it a bit smaller so we can see all of it, can you still read it if I do that? And here it is again. This is interesting. Number 1. Now, what this is, these are clues, indicators. There either definitely is, because the language is there, or there may be a limiting belief driving some of this. So, number 1, anything you can't feel. So that requires stepping into your client's model of the world. And there's something that they can't feel, that you can't feel. What would that be? I remember another student who once said, The real world doesn't allow you to have your own beliefs and values. And that still hurts my head. Years later, and this is a feeling, because the expression, I can't wrap my head around that. I cannot work out what that means. And I put myself in that place. The real world doesn't allow you to have your own beliefs and values. Okay, so
Sorry, Pam. Some people can't read that. If you don't mind blowing it up a little bit, please.
I'll blow it up. There we go.
Thank you.
I'll put it back up. So if I'm in that space of the real world doesn't allow me to have my own beliefs or you to have your own beliefs and values, and I put myself in that place and I kind of grapple with that, it's like, okay, so if I'm in the real world, does that mean therefore that I don't have any beliefs and values? Well, that's pretty scary. But I must have beliefs and values. So does that mean then I'm not living in the real world? And if I'm not living in the real world, where am I? And that's pretty scary. So either way, when I grapple with that statement and try to make that make sense, and it's kind of a thought thing as well as a feeling thing, I can't feel that and years later, I cannot put myself in that space. And then that's what tells us that that is distorted, because we can't do it. We can't make that make sense in our heads. We can't feel what that would feel like. I can kind of feel the world is a cruel place and people are spiteful. I can kind of put myself in that, and it's horrible. But that one, the world doesn't allow you to have your woo. That's just like boom, can't do it. And that's what that means, anything you can't feel. So if you can't put yourself and kind of get a handle on the statement then that is huge indicator that that statement certainly is a limiting belief, but probably that there's a lot more going on there. Okay, that's what that's about. Now this one, complex equivalence, we've met these already. This is the one with the equal sign in. And actually, you can put the equal sign. I might need to blow it up a bit more because that is small. You can put the equal sign in between your identity, I am, and whatever the next thing that comes is evil or stupid or not good enough. Because it's the exact same process that we've been through in our heads. We have made I am, me, equal this thing that isn't accurate. But now the two are joined together. And the thing was not good enough. And your approach to that would be exactly the same. We have to challenge the equals. And there are ways to do that. And the very first way to do that is to say, and what else are you? Because when someone's in that space of thinking, I am not good enough, that is all they're thinking about. And they are many other I ams. They will have many other aspects to their identity. And helping them to think about those other aspects will lessen the impact and the negativity that's being driven by that I am not good enough. If they've gone into that kind of tunnel vision, and that's I'm not good enough. It's like, well, what else are you? Okay. Well, I am kind. Okay. So you may not feel that you're not good enough, and you're kind. And what else are you? Well, I am a good friend. Okay, so, and then you counter this thing by having all of this evidence. Then it may not actually counter that exact limiting belief, but it helps. It really helps when someone realizes that that's not all that they are. Okay, so that's what we do with those. Possibility, we've met these already, haven't we? The I can or I can't, that's the Henry Ford one, and my goodness, there were a lot of those. So whenever you hear I can't, that is a limiting belief. Negations. Again, whenever you hear a negative in a sentence, that suggests limiting beliefs. So I don't deserve success. There's the negative. Necessity, those are words like have to, need to, ought to, should, must, etc., etc., because all of those suggest that your client doesn't have a choice. I have to. They're not choosing. And that again is indicative of and suggests that somewhere, well, that's what they believe, or I have to do this before I can do that. That is their belief, but it also suggests that there might be some bigger limiting beliefs going on under there. We have got comparative deletions. Whenever there is a comparison, again, limiting belief. He is better than me, or I am not good enough. Compared to what? That begs the question, compared to what? And that comparison piece tells us that that is a limiting belief. Dissociated language, that one very subtle. When you are listening to your clients in a coaching conversation, in the context of a conversation, and your client is talking in the first person. So can we demonstrate this? All right, so I could say, I went for a walk down the high street and I went into the store, and what I witnessed in the store, I saw a man arguing with the female cashier, and he didn't have enough money to pay, and she was doing her best to stand her ground and say, I'm sorry, you can't take the... And you feel really uncomfortable, don't you, when you kind of see an altercation or conflict. And that's incredibly subtle, but what happened just there was I went from talking about the I saw an altercation, to, and you feel really uncomfortable when you see. And what I've done there is to distance myself from the uncomfortable. I don't want to own the uncomfortable by saying, and I felt uncomfortable, because it was uncomfortable. I want to distance myself from it. And one way that we do that is through our language, and we call it dissociated language. And we start talking about you, or when one feels, that would be the British royal family. And it's keeping that emotional distance. And when you hear that in a conversation, that again is a clue. Like, okay, something going on here. That it's not saying that it's inappropriate to feel uncomfortable, or absolutely, that's how we respond to stuff. It's simply that subtle change in language. Negative emotions, again, absolutely appropriate to feel these things in response to certain situations. That isn't what this is saying. What it is saying is when your client talks about anger or sadness or fear, guilt, often this suggests that there are limiting beliefs in play, because it is the residual negative emotion attached to past events that keeps and holds the limiting beliefs in place. So when they're talking about, it kind of suggests that there's limiting beliefs going on. So tick that one off on your checklist. Generalizations, we've covered those already, haven't we? Always, never, every, nobody, nothing. Thanks for Joan's wonderful example of her sister. No one in the city's friendly. It always goes wrong. It never works. I had one of these. Oh my gosh. I'm not convinced actually that I have kicked it to the curb completely. And it was, wait for it. Zeenat's going to laugh. Nothing is straightforward. Yeah, you see. I'm not convinced. I think I need to do some more work on that one. Because there are a lot of things in my life that are not straightforward. Surprise, surprise. I'm owning that. You see, nobody is immune to this stuff or from this stuff. Finally, and this could be a whole masterclass in its own right, beliefs about health when your client identifies with a diagnosis or illness. I am a depressive, I am asthma, I have asthma. Oh, this is a whole other whole discussion. It comes to, again, that separation between behavior and identity. And the example I gave you earlier of how it is easier to help a smoker give up smoking who says, I smoke 60 cigarettes a day, because that is a behavior, compared to the identity. The issue with diagnoses is that they go straight up to the identity level, and we can debate how helpful, whether that is helpful or not. And the lady who taught me most of what I know about health within NLP, an amazing woman called Susie Smith, she told us that when, and it's so hard not to say it, when you have flu, okay, it's really hard not to say it. What we actually need to do is to say, I am fluing, I am colding. So we have to take the label back down to the level of behavior and process, because then we can work with it. When it's up here, the big identity level, kind of, is it helpful, is it not helpful? Anyway, there's some thoughts. As I say, that could be a whole other masterclass. So there's a handy checklist for you. It's a lot. I always say to my students on my program, when you are going out working with clients, it is helpful sometimes to literally choose one piece of this and focus in on that and think, okay, I'm going to listen out for this today to see if I hear any generalizations or any complex equivalences, or whether my client dissociates at any point during the conversation by distancing themselves with that switch in their language. It's often helpful to break this down, because that is a lot of stuff to try and do at once and when you're learning. Okay, so break it down, be mindful of all of those, and then yes, maybe listen out, practice one at a time. Okay, have a day when you listen out for the have tos and need tos and ought tos. They come up a lot. We're into the next bit of how. Ah. So the very, very, very first piece that I want you to give to your clients really is awareness. Awareness that they can choose to believe something else, that they can, it's a word there, reinvent themselves literally through changing their beliefs, how they see the world, because we forget we have so much more awareness than our clients do, and that awareness really is the first step. And sometimes that is an absolute revelation to a client, that they could actually choose to believe something else about themselves that actually would be a damn sight more helpful. That in itself can be massive. And that's the first step, isn't it? It's absolutely key, is awareness. And you can educate your clients very, very simply, just exactly as I have with you this evening, because otherwise that's what they believe. This is the way I am. They kind of think they're stuck with it, and they're not. Okay, so that's the first step. I've talked already, you don't need the big techniques. The questions and statements that we have on this page will absolutely transform your clients' thinking where they have limiting beliefs. And this is all in your gift as their coach. So when you hear one of those statements, for example, I'm not good enough. First up, what is true about this? You want them to present their evidence for this, I am not good enough, okay? You want them to lay it bare. What's the evidence? What is true about this? And then you can just kind of sit back and go, well, is that a belief? And maybe you've done the education piece around what beliefs are, that it's something they hold to be true that isn't necessarily true. And then you say, well, you could choose to believe that. And what that does is introduce the idea that they have a choice. Hugely subtle. Well, that's one perspective. Again, that is setting the scene for there being another perspective. And then what we do is say, well, do you have a belief about what should be in this situation? Because we already know that the shoulds are a problem. So we actually want them to kind of recognize that they only believe this because they think that they should. And where's that coming from then? What's driving that? And then you can simply say, well, there's a belief. And you can keep going with that for a whole coaching session. You literally just flag them up and go, well, there's another belief. And there's another belief. And there's one. And you can cycle through this process many times. And that is how you actually begin to challenge them, the beliefs, and your clients. What is true about this? Is that a belief? You could choose to believe that. This is one perspective. Do you have a belief about what should be? And there's a belief. And there's another belief. And that could go on for a very long time. And that brings us into, well, that's a great question. Always think about that. What is the question that you can ask that has the most potential leverage for creating a shift for this client? I used to have that written up on my wall. So this is our first conversation template. That's what this looks like. This is the belief. This is a real example. One of the coaches who's studied with me, it was one of their clients. They're a career coach. And this is what her client said: I am too old to start a new career. And that's this side is how you respond to it. So we help our client realize that they are stuck in one way of looking at the situation by asking, is that a belief? Are there other ways of thinking about this? And what if you were to consider a different belief? And when you ask those questions, we move to this space. Well, I might be old, but I have plenty of experience. Okay. And actually, I am a manager because I've been managing our home and family for years. Okay. So those are the other ways of thinking about the situation. And then kind of, well, what other possibilities are there? Can you think of several other beliefs that could change how you see the situation? And that moves us to, I actually have a lot of experience and skills to offer. And then you ask them to actually try that new belief on for size, to step into it, try it on, it's the belief jumper. Try them on for size to see if they fit. And then what you say, you're not suggesting that this is true yet, this new belief. What you are saying is, if this other belief, I actually have a lot to offer, was true, what might you notice about this situation? And we come to here. What I might notice is that I can bring real value to this role. And then you can ask and help them choose a useful belief, because that's what we actually want rather than I am too old. And which of these other beliefs do you think would be most useful to you as you think about moving into action? And what we get, the actions are, this is the belief that I can bring real value. And when it comes to here, we're helping them create a plan based on the new helpful belief. And the actions are apply for the job, rewrite my CV, book an interview coaching session with you. I said she was a career coach. What's next? What is the plan? What steps do you want to take? And then we want them to commit to that plan because we're coaches. So we're checking whether they want to commit. Are you ready to commit? What would it take for you to commit? What could stop you? I'm going to go for it. I need your support, but I won't let anything stop me. And then we can get to encourage your client to take action. What's the next thing you will do? Da, 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 da. And the next thing is make a list of all of my transferable skills and link them to the job requirements. And they want to be held accountable. So we have come from the top here. I am too old to start a new career. Down to I am going to go for it. Because now the new belief is I can bring real value to this role. In a few steps. And I have witnessed that happen time and time again using these simple conversational templates. Okay, I can bring real value to this role. So you take in the original belief, I am too old to start a new career. Working through this process, coming to this place of I can bring real value to this role. Very simple. You may need to have this in front of you for a few times, but dialing it back, the very first thing you've got to do is to hear those limiting beliefs and recognize them as limiting beliefs so that you can begin to have this conversation or the previous conversation, which is, oh, it's gone, this one. So what is true about this? Is that a belief? You could choose to believe that. This is one perspective. Okay, do you have a belief about what should be in this situation? So I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking, I'm hoping that we can make this work more effectively than yesterday, because what I would love for you to do is to work with a partner through this process. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to think back to the limiting belief that you put in the chat. Remember that I asked you the most challenging limiting belief that a client of yours, or the limiting belief that your client has. And you put it in the chat. So what I want you to do when you're being the client is to actually role play that challenging client. And the belief that I want you to deliver, to put in that first box, is the one that you shared in the chat earlier. And then your coach is going to work through that process, okay? Of step 1, step 2, step 3. And they're going to see where they can coach you to. And I want you to absolutely do your best. And I explained how you do it earlier, to step into your client and be that challenging client, okay, for your coach. Now we're going to do this. We're exactly just coming up to past. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes to do this. So you've got about 7 minutes each way, which should be long enough. Again, really depends who is here and who isn't here. What we'll do is we'll pop you into the breakout rooms, and please, if you find yourself in a room on your own, bear with us, stay there, and we will move things around so that after a few minutes, you will hopefully, we'll put you into a room where there is someone else on their own. Basically, that's what we have to do. But as soon as you start coming out, that becomes more complicated. Okay, so sit in there and wait, and Zena and I will work hard to get it sorted. Zena, okay.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah, I'm on. Oh, okay. 83. Okay, 40 breakout rooms. Hopefully this is right. Here we go.
have fun.
Right. I had a couple of people jumping out each time I was trying to recalculate it. Right, okay. Room 40, join. No, how do I move this? Here we go. Who have we got left here? I've got Anna in one room, so I'm going to move her to room 39. Okay. And then I've got one in room 30. Oh, got two there now. Okay. I've got one in room. Okay, Angeline. She can go with room 4. Angeline is in 1. Hang on a minute, where is she? Where's Angeline gone?
I don't know,
She jumped out.
possibly.
Okay, we've got Angeline in room 1. So she's going to join room 40. Okay, Angeline, where are you again?
Where's the bit where you can
There we go.
room 40?
Move to room 40. Go. Okay, she's gone. 2, 2, 2. No one in 24. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. No one there. 2. Okay. And we've got people here, so
Who's here?
don't know. These people haven't gone into a room.
Maybe they're not there. Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone should be coming back in.
Mm-hmm. Literally.
27 seconds to go.
Da, 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 da.
Sounds really bizarre because I can hear you giggling upstairs, Pam.
Oh gosh, that's funny. I can't hear you downstairs actually. I think I heard once. I think I did hear just something once. And Lucky here was snoring at one point when he
Well,
was
at
here.
least he was snoring. He was going crazy down here with me.
He doesn't snore as badly as my old girl used to. I've actually got her on a lot of recordings, and it was very, very sad when she passed away. My group who were working with me at the time were really sad. We really miss her snoring. Like, oh no, I do too. Oh, right. Okay, here we are. We're back. Let's have a very quick debrief on that. Oh, Zena, did you do a screenshot, by the way?
I did at the beginning, yes.
Okay, perfect. Let's have a very, very, very quick debrief. Hopefully most of you were in a room where there was somebody else. We did have to shuffle people around a little bit, but I think on the whole it was more went better than yesterday. So how was that? How was that?
Good. Kevin coached me. We didn't have time for me to coach him, but Kevin coached me and went through the questions and stuff. And I thought it went really well.
Okay. Were you being your sister, by the way, or were you being
No, I was being a client.
Okay.
Yeah. A client who thinks they're too old, no one will hire them.
Uh-huh. I did wonder if you might role play your sister. Okay, that's good. So he was going through the questions and that was good.
Yeah, at first I thought, well, it might seem clunky to go for someone to go through the questions one by one, but it didn't, I don't know, it seemed natural.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Good. Good. That's good to know. Anybody else before we
Yeah,
have
Pam, there is.
Yes.
Helen Barnes is asking,
Uh-huh.
what happens when you've gone through all the questions, but the belief is so sticky that the client has an answer for everything? What next?
That is a brilliant question, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. What was the particular belief?
Helen, do you want to mute yourself?
Yeah, sure. It's going back to your student again.
Oh, that's
It's people are awful.
people are awful. Okay. That one, because it is that level, it's the global level. That one, the process we are coming on to. So I would go through that first set of questions and probably the first set rather than the 7-step template. That would be my gut feel on that one. And then I would move into our final one because it introduces a couple of elements which aren't in the ones we've done so
come
far.
on.
And these extra elements will really help with a belief that is at that level. What was I just going to say? Okay, the other question, which is off script, and I mentioned it earlier for this belief, and ones that, yeah, really aren't budging and very sticky, as you put it, is the question that I mentioned earlier. What does holding onto the belief of people are awful do for you? You can ask it at that level, the do for you, or you can ask, what is the positive intention of holding on to the belief of people are awful? So what is the positive intention? And then the final one, for what purpose? For what purpose to believe people are awful?
Sorry, can you say that one again? For what purpose to believe?
Yes. For what purpose to believe people are awful, or for what purpose to hold on to the belief of, or for what purpose to not let go of? So you have to think very carefully about your negatives and nots.
Yeah. I've come across this before. The negatives can be really helpful to unlock, can't they?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the nots.
For what purpose to not believe?
Yes, that's it.
Not what
That
purpose.
one. Brilliant. Brilliant. Absolutely. For what purpose to not? Yeah, that'll do it. That will just boom. And it's because when someone's head is trying to work that out, their unconscious mind answers the question. It's a very deliberate strategy to the conscious mind. Okay.
Thank you.
The other bit, let me do the screen share. I was looking for my paper copy there. Let me do the screen share quickly because it introduces these other two elements, which Have I done it? Yes, here we go. Which are really clever. Here we go. It is by Robert Dilts, who we've met already because it's his neurological levels model was Robert. And this one, and he has many, this one is called the walking belief change process because Robert's, Jeanette Hay, coming in. Robert's process is very big and kinesthetic, and he literally, when he's in person with people, walks people through these steps by sort of marking out spaces on the floor that represent each of these stages. And you can also use it conversationally as well. So don't be misled by the title. Stages, and you'll see which are the extra ones. 6 stages to this one. The first one, it sounds like you and let's go with this one of where we're gone. People are awful. It sounds like you have a belief. People are awful that is influencing your behavior. How would you describe it? What do you believe about this issue? What is true in this situation? So this is similar to the questions in the other one. And you want them to really hold forth on this topic. You want them to get it all out and explain to you exactly why they believe this. You want the evidence. Number 2, are you beginning to question the validity of this belief? Is there some doubt in your mind about this assumption, which is why I said I'd work through that first process first, because that hopefully will have just begun, even though they might appear to be holding on for dear life. Hopefully something has begun to rattle. I think when you see someone really, really determined like that, they're not letting go of it. What that means is they're having to hold on really tightly because it is beginning to shift, if that makes sense. So think of a time when you first began to question an old belief. Is that similar to how you feel now? Now, Robert introduced this concept of the Museum of Old Beliefs, which is absolutely wonderful because we're not supporting the way that some clients want to do this, which is to get rid of and kind of throw away these old unhelpful beliefs, which is an understandable way to feel, but it's actually not helpful. What we need to do is to understand the positive intention, which are those questions that I've just given you. And once we understand the positive intention, we want to place this old belief in the Museum of Old Beliefs. And what we're doing here, it's very clever because we are explaining to our client that there have been things that they have believed at one time or another fully, and that they now know are no longer true. And I don't want to disappoint anybody, but dare I say it, Father Christmas, Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy are the examples that most people normally come up with, because certainly in UK culture, I have to be culturally appropriate here, the one I use actually, Puss in Boots. The streets of London are paved with gold. That's what I used to believe because it's in the fairy tale. And I can remember age 6 being incredibly upset and disappointed when I found out this wasn't true, because we went to London and there were no pavements paved with gold, not even the one outside Buckingham Palace, which was really upsetting. So in my brain then filed that belief. I absolutely believed and thought was true in this museum of old beliefs, because now I know it becomes something that I used to believe and I now know it's not true. And what we want our client to do with their people are awful is to file it in that way. So we want this to become a belief that absolutely we used to believe, your client used to believe, and they now know it's not true. So that's why we have the Museum of Old Beliefs. And when they've put their old belief in there, we move on to actually this stage, which is where we help them identify something that they would rather believe that will support them. So that could be the exact opposite of the belief you're working with, or simply something that is easier for them to believe. And it could even be, it would be a step forward at the very least. And it's phrasing it. So what would the opposite of awful be? Kind? Be? So how about there are some kind people? Well, that would be more supportive, wouldn't it? And going from people are awful to there are some kind people, what we want to do then is to give this new belief that they don't quite believe yet a lot of oomph, if you like. And how we do that is to take them to this step of step 6 and have them think about their most dearly held beliefs, which could be, whatever happens, I know the sun is going to come up tomorrow morning. And you have them kind of place this new belief of there are some kind people, and file it in the way that we file those beliefs that are absolute truths for us, because that's going to bolster it and make it bigger and bolder and stronger. And that's really important that you do that. So that's the 2 extra steps, if you like, the Museum of Old Beliefs. So laying the old belief to rest. We're not getting rid of it. We're just putting it in the museum. And then the sacred beliefs of what do we need to do with this new belief so that we can absolutely believe it. Okay. It's very lovely, a very lovely process to take your clients through. Okay. We're going back to, I'm going to stop the share. There we go. So I'd rather see you lot at this point. Okay. Yes, I like this one very much too. It's very lovely. It's a very lovely process. And all you can do is work through the different processes. And I have never, well, never, there's another word, there's a belief. It would be very difficult to get to the end of one of these processes and for some change not to have happened. That's my absolute belief, that there will be a shift of one sort or another. Okay, have you got any questions for me? I know we're on time. If you need to go, I'm happy to stay and answer your questions. So if that's what you would like to do, Lara, Life Coach. Hello, Lara.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for tonight. It's been amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here, really, everybody.
My question is, would you expect to get through these processes within one session, or is it okay for you, into your hour, to then go, okay, we've reached this level. Now next week we'll come back. I've had it in the past where a client is then in a negative space, and from my point of view, I always want them to finish on a positive. But is that the right way to be?
It's absolutely yes. I think sometimes an hour isn't long enough, and I certainly sometimes allow more time depending on who the client is, what we're dealing with. So there's that option to actually allow a bit more time, or going into it, think about which pieces you are going to do, particularly when you're working conversationally. So don't attempt to go through the whole process and then find that you're short on time. Actually think about, well, today we're going to perhaps get as far as the Museum of Old Beliefs, because that no harm will be done by stopping at that point. And then in the next session, you can work on creating the new belief. Okay, you could do that with that particular process. The first one we looked at, I think you can easily get through that because it's very rolling off the tongue, and hopefully the 7-step as well, I think you could do. Yeah, so, but yes, you can break them down. It's a great question. Be very mindful, yes, because you do want to leave your client in a better place, ideally, than where they came into the session. And
I often go off on a tangent sometimes as well. Don't they have to keep bringing them back to, yeah.
don't they just? I know it is one of the big differences really between pure NLP and coaching, is that in NLP we do tend to set things up with a lot more time than the kind of 1-hour sessions. So yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a really good question, actually. It is something that I mention at some points, usually, often, but didn't tonight. So thank you. That's a great question. Are there any more questions coming up, Zena, in the chat, or anybody got one? If so, raise your hand. Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, here. Who's that? Claire? Hello.
Sorry, I've just got a very quick question because I know we're late. You just thrown a little bit of a bombshell in for me, because this is my introduction to NLP. What is the difference between NLP and coaching NLP?
NLP and
You talked about when you're doing NLP,
yes,
and then you talked about coaching NLP. Is there a difference, or are they the same thing?
okay. I'm a little bit confused by the coaching NLP coaching.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe I misheard.
Maybe NLP, and it's when you go and do a practitioner course or a master practitioner course, is what we call technique led. So you literally learn how to do a series of different techniques that you would use in a particular situation. And as a rule, the ICF do not accredit a training which is based on tools. They just don't. And it has been quite a task to present the pieces of NLP that I teach in a way that the ICF will actually say, okay, we can see how you can bring that into your coaching and use it within your coaching. So we're taking the essence of some of those big processes and using them within coaching. So the way that I explain it is, I've got a bit of paper here very quickly, 2 big circles like that, and we've got coaching. Where it is, can you say, oh, you can't really see that, never mind.
Yeah, like a Venn diagram.
Yeah, a Venn diagram. And one circle is coaching, one circle is NLP. When they're apart, they are completely different things. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, NLP is coaching. in a very broad definition of coaching, maybe, but not in the ICF definition for sure. And then when we bring them together, the overlap bit in the Venn diagram, that bit in the middle is where the magic happens, because we are bringing the very powerful elements of NLP into coaching in a way that you can actually use them within a coaching conversation. So you're not having to roll out a big technique, as it were, as I call them. And the program, formerly known as the Masterclass program, because it consists of 11 masterclasses or 12, now known as the NLP, the Expert NLP Coach, rebranded. Basically, that is all about that piece in the middle and how we bring NLP into our coaching conversations. And then I have a new program called The Client's Journey, and that is all about more NLP driven, and actually how we can bring NLP into coaching programs and one-to-one programs. And it's a framework sort of based more on an NLP foundation that you can adapt for your clients. So this, and that could never and will never be accredited by the ICF because of that difference. So yes, that's
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, massively.
Well, there's so much confusion out there. There is so much confusion out there about what is what and what coaching is and what NLP is and what mentoring is. And the truth is, many of us do all of those things. And I think the important thing is to know which you're doing at any given time, and, you know, hopefully blending them together so that it's not a kind of really clunky experience for your clients. I know when I first started, I would be coaching and I said, oh, okay, let's do a parts integration. Your clients kind of sitting there, go, what are we doing? And yeah, now I can bring the essence of a parts integration into a conversation, and you wouldn't even need to say that that's what you were doing, because it fits seamlessly and elegantly into what you were already doing. And it's, yeah, but it's taken a long time to get to that point, you know. I think, and I have this conversation pretty much every month with my students, because there can be some frustration, and it's like, come on, you know, I've been doing this now for 23 years, you know. It's like, we've been doing it for 3 months and 2.5 hours a month. So, you know, after 6, 7, 8 hours, you're not going to be at the same level that I am after 23 years. But we all forget that as adults. We all want to be really good at what we do and learn quickly. And yeah, it can take time to learn a new skill. Of course it can. That's normal. And we all go into that space, don't we, of what's it called? I have to get this right. Conscious incompetence. And then we move into conscious competence. And that's what most trainings are doing. They're moving us from that one into the other. And that's okay. As long as you know that you are consciously incompetent, that's all right, because you know what your limitations are when you're in that space. As long as you know you're in that space. It's when people are unconsciously incompetent, so they don't know that they're incompetent, that the damage happens usually. And then eventually it all becomes part of your practice, and then we move into that space of unconscious competence. There we are, managed it. It's much easier when you've got a flip chart to draw that on than it is to explain it. Don't we all love Zoom? Anyway, so good. I'm glad that helped, because it is, you know, it's a great question. It is quite confusing, that whole area. So I know we've got another question. Hello. Go for it. Ask me. I want to say again.
Again. Thank you for making the extra time. Just a couple of thoughts that come to my mind is when we talk about limiting beliefs, I think of blind spots. So are they the same? Are they different? How do we read into it? And as a coach, when you are in a coaching conversation, when the client is sharing something where they have made active choices about something, but there may be limited beliefs, behind those choices. My thought is, as long as they are okay with those choices, as a coach, I don't need to kind of coach them to change it in any way. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm saying a couple of things here.
Yes, no, that makes sense, because absolutely, we work by invitation with permission. So if someone is making choices which frankly aren't serving them very well, but
Right.
they're really okay with those choices, it's not our job to pass judgment, or that's down to them. We work by invitation. So the first piece on blind spots, I would want to say, what exactly do you mean by a blind spot?
In the sense, they don't just, like we said, at the start of the call today, they just don't see it any other way.
Okay, they don't see
And
it.
that's where that's where it's a limiting belief.
Yes, I would run all of the limiting belief protocols, but you can also do the what's the positive intention of not seeing this any other way. What's that doing for you?
No, but the whole point of a blind spot is they don't think there is another way, right? So then our protocol, the steps we spoke about would help to say, is there another way to, sometimes the simplest
Another way to
question,
see it.
simplest question, you just say, what else?
Of a perspective, what else?
That's it.
And
what else?
And there are so many powerful questions in all of those templates. You sometimes don't need all of them, and you can just use one of them in a conversation from one of the steps, and that can be enough to do this, for something to shift and change. So
okay, I must thank you. This has been my sort of a deeper level introduction to NLP. I knew a little bit, but thank you so much for this. Somehow I feel I am also a psychologist. Somewhere I feel NLP as a tool, would you say, has a lot more application in therapy?
it can be used, yes. There is a therapeutic application of NLP. It's not a route that many people go down. Most people qualify to master practitioner level. There is certain steps you can take in the UK. We have an organisation called the UKCP, the United Kingdom Counselling and Psychotherapy, whatever, and then there is a route, a very specific route into that, where you can become registered with the UKCP with only NLP practice. Yeah, so you can be
I meant more
NLP therapist.
Therapy, counseling as against coaching, because coaching becomes inherently, it is client driven in a way.
Which one is client driven? Therapy.
Coaching.
Yes, absolutely. So
if they don't want to change anything, if they don't want to move in a direction to consider other things, then you don't.
oh, exactly. Exactly, because
Thank you so much.
Our job to do that. But yeah, hugely. And I've had counselling psychologists come on the course, counsellors, therapists, and yes, coaches, and all kinds of different coaches, and personal trainers, of course, because I used to work in the fitness industry. So, and the application is the
Mhm.
application is as useful in each of those. So yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you.
All right. Well, we shall be in touch. I'm sure, well, you probably know I teach the same class again tomorrow, and you're welcome to come again if you really want to. I teach the same class tomorrow and then on Thursday. So, and then I might do an impromptu Q&A on Friday. I'm not quite sure yet about my different programs, but we'll keep you posted. But certainly I'll be sending information out to you by email. So if you have any interest in further training, let me know. As I say, I have rebranded the Masterclass program, and it's now called the Expert NLP Coach. And that is the ICF, the program which has the masterclasses, which are all ICF accredited within it. So that's really, and what we've done today is one of those, 11, 12. And then my new program called The Client's Journey, what I'm actually doing this time is I'm offering that as a bonus to anybody who comes on board with this particular cohort, because it's the first time that I've run it. So it is a program in its own right. And but yes, it's coming in as a bonus, but you'll get an email about that, and there's some info. I think Zeenat's been very efficient at putting it in the chat for me, which is wonderful. So let me know. You're all connected on LinkedIn, so you can drop me a LinkedIn message or email the support email, and I'll happily, I think the calendar link's gone in, so I usually find that's the best way to have conversations about further training, is actually to have a conversation about it. So you're more than welcome to book and let me know where you're at in your coaching journey and how I can help. So yeah, goodness. Well, it's dinner time here in the UK, definitely. We're going to go and cook. Zeenat downstairs. Bless you.
Time.
So do you have any more questions, specific questions, or is it time to say night night at this point? Night night. Oh, thank you. Yay. Lovely to meet you all. Thank you so much for being here. It's been fantastic. We've still got a few people down here who aren't really here. Go, there's Alba.